Hello, everybody. This is a review of the springtime constellations in Stellarium, and I am at, we'll put 3:31. The date is 3:31 today, and it's about 8:40 in the evening, and we're going to go outside and look at the stars together. I'm going to start off with the western part of the sky, and your goal is to try to identify, as I look at these pictures with you, as I look at this Stellarium, try to see if you can identify the name of the star, the object, the constellation's proper name, common name, and the nickname if it has one. So I'm going to begin with a very famous group of stars right here. So what is the name of this set of stars, right? What is the name of this star cluster? If we zoom in, we can see a little more detail. But what is the name of that cluster? All right, and the name we're looking for is the Pleiades Cluster, also called M45, the Pleiades Cluster. And you might remember it's got some nicknames. It's known as, in Japanese as Subaru, or the Seven Sisters. Okay, that's our first cluster. We'll zoom back out a bit. So in addition to stars, there may be other objects. So for example, right now, this is March 31st, you might notice that there's a V shape right here. So that V shape is a pretty important thing for us because it's going to help us to identify constellations, stars, clusters. Okay, let's start off with a star that's in the V, specifically in the V right here. This star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? And the proper name for that is Taurus. That is Taurus, and Taurus is the bull. So here are the horns of the bull. Taurus, the bull. Remember, the proper name, Taurus, common name, the bull. Now, in between the two horns, we have an object that's very red in color. So it is not a star. In fact, what could it be? And this is one that's in our sky right now, so you should know it. In fact, this is Mars, the planet Mars. Okay, great. Now, there's another reddish object, which is actually part of the V as well. What is the name of this star or object? You're supposed to know that because it's in that V shape, what could it be? So between the horns, we have that, and this right here. And this is also known as the eye of the bull, and the name is Aldebaran. Aldebaran is the name. Okay, so you're supposed to remember Aldebaran, the eye of the bull in Taurus. Okay, let's zoom out just a bit. So looking up in the sky, a little bit higher than the cluster, I can see this really bright star, which happens to be part of a ring of stars. Okay, so I might see that too. And let's see, what is the name of this star or object? Okay, you want to try to name that? You like to sing without accompaniment? You might remember the name of that star. The name of the star means goat in Latin. It is Capella. Capella is the name of that star. But let's go right next door to it. By the way, this is the goat, and then there's three little baby goats right here. This is the baby goat. Right next door. So this makes a ring of stars, right? You're not supposed to see that, but I'm going to show you. And I'll go to this star right here. This star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? So because it's right next to Capella and it's in that ring, you're going to recognize it. It is called Auriga, the charioteer. Auriga, the charioteer. All right, let's try to do some easy ones next. So let's jump over, actually, and then I'll come back and do something a little harder. Let's jump back over here to this constellation. And I'll point to the star here. The star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? And this is one of the first ones we learned. So you should remember that it is Orion, the hunter. So the common name is Hunter. What about the stars in Orion? We'll start up here, and I realize it's in the west now, so it's not so high in the sky. But what is the name of this bright orange-red star? And the name of the star is Betelgeuse. So if that's Betelgeuse, what about this bright blue star here next door? Actually, not quite as bright as this one, though, right? And the answer is, if this is Betelgeuse, this is Bellatrix. Bellatrix. Now, very bright across from on the other side of Orion. Here's our belt, right? Across the belt from Betelgeuse, we have this star. What is the name of this blue supergiant right here? That is called Rigel. Rigel. So Betelgeuse, Bellatrix, Rigel, and this star here is called Saiph. Saiph. Those are the stars in Orion. Now, before I forget, I want to tell you that hiding behind the V shape, behind it, right, there's another cluster of stars. It's a little bit hard to see. What is the name of the cluster that hides behind the V? And it looks really good when you zoom in and see it with a telescope. It's really neat. There's lots and lots of stars here, but it's really behind the V shape. And the name for that, I will look it up right here. It is called the Hyades Cluster. Oops, Hyades. Hyades. That's the Hyades Cluster. So you want to know that that's the Hyades Cluster behind the V. Zooming back out. How about this? Let's take the belt and use the belt as a clue, right? Using the belt, we trace this way towards a very bright star. In fact, that happens to be, I know you know this already, the brightest star in the sky. What is the name of the brightest star in the sky? And the answer is Sirius, the dog star, right? Remember that Sirius is actually the color of this dog right here. That's why it's called the dog star. So now I'm near Sirius, anywhere near Sirius. I picked the star, for example. This star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? And you want to remember that because it's part of that big constellation right next to Sirius, it is Canis Major. That's the proper name. The common name is the big dog, right? Remember, that's the big dog. Canis Major, the big dog. All right, so zooming up here, we see another bright star. We want to practice this one coming up. This star is part of a very small constellation. Again, I shouldn't show you, but it's just 2 stars right there. This star is a special name that you're supposed to know. Okay, so you might remember you're not an amateur, you are a pro. What is the name of this star or object? It is Procyon. Procyon. Now, Procyon only has one other star that it's with in that constellation, so I have to point to this one. This star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? And the nickname is the hot dog constellation. But in fact, it's just those 2 stars. The proper name is Canis Miner, which means little dog. So that's our little dog. You can't see it. Have to turn on the little dog. There's a little dog. Okay. All right. So that's Procyon. Remember, that's Procyon. Betelgeuse, Bellatrix, Rigel, Saiph, Sirius, Aldebaran, Capella. Okay, we've only got 2 more stars. And then we have this thing called the winter hexagon. And these 2 stars are right next to each other. In fact, we sometimes say they're twin stars. Hint, hint, right? So if this is Procyon, what is the name of this star right here? What is the name of this star or object? You want to remember it is Pollux. If that's Pollux, what is the star next to it? His brother, right? And the star next to it is called Castor. Castor and Pollux, what are they? So I'm going to go near Castor and Pollux, somewhere down here, and the bodies go down like this. There's 2 boys, 2 men, 2 brothers, right? So I picked this star right here. This star is a member of a constellation. what is the proper name? And if I'm anywhere in this region, you're going to say, that's Gemini, the proper name. And they are the twins, right? Gemini the twins. Okay, so those are some for the winter. Let's jump over to the new ones that we learned in the springtime. And I'm just zooming out just a bit. But to make this easy, you want to pay attention to the bright stars first. So I'm going to jump over to the brightest star I can see in the area, the first one, first bright star, and I'm going to be right here. And so I want to identify that. Now, if you didn't notice it, above that star, I have a shape like a backwards question mark. There it is, backwards question mark. So what is the name of this star or object? And the name of that is Regulus. Regulus. Now, there's another star which is going to end up being at the tail of this constellation, at the other side of the constellation. It's the brightest star around, right, other than Regulus. And it happens to be the tail, so I can find it over here. What is the name of the tail star? And you want to remember that is called the nebula. The nebula. So what is this constellation? So I'll point to another star. I'll say this star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? And you want to remember that Regulus and the nebula are part of the constellation Leo. Leo is the proper name, and the common name is the lion. All right, now that I know where Leo is, I can talk about one of the dimmest constellations in the sky, right? Which is in between Leo and Gemini, specifically the heads of the brothers and so Pollux and Castor and Regulus. If you go in between, you'll find some dim stars that make a constellation. It's very dim, but there's a little bit of the outline. I went too far actually, so there it is. Okay, so they're pretty dim. So these are the ones right here. Okay, dim, dim, dim. So if I point to this star right here, this star is a member of a constellation. I'm in between Leo and Gemini. It's got to be this constellation. What is the proper name of the constellation? And you want to say Cancer, the crab. Very good. Okay. If you zoom into the middle of Cancer, you find a really lovely, wonderful cluster of stars. Let's zoom in and see that. There it is. I see it. Do you see it? Everybody see it? Okay. There's this beautiful cluster, and you're supposed to know the name of that cluster. What is the name for this cluster of stars, which happens to be at the center of Cancer the crab? And the number that I remember is M44, which is also known as the Beehive Cluster. The Beehive Cluster. So in the middle of that dim constellation is a wonderful, beautiful cluster. It's really neat to look at. Zooming back out. Let's do a little bit more. Okay, so we're zooming back out. We can see these bright stars. We got Regulus, we got the nebula. Now let's go down and over, and we'll find a star right here that's pretty bright. And I'm going to ask you the name of that star or object. Now, I will mention that it is actually a part of this very long constellation in the sky. I'll mention that. So you're supposed to remember that the name is of this star or object, Alphard. That's Alphard. And it's a part of this big, long constellation. So if you can find Alphard, Regulus is here, Alphard is here. If you go up, you can see there's a little ring of stars. That's the head. And this is the body coming down. It jogs down, and then it starts coming across and down like that, right? See the big long line of stars. So I'll point to the star here, which is nearly in the head. This star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? And you're going to say Hydra. Hydra is the proper name. The common name is the water snake. Okay. So if I go down a little further, you're going to find there's some more constellations. But before I do those, let's talk about the bright stars that are left in this part of the sky. Those are the last two that we need. And I'm going to highlight for you, if I zoom back out again, which I will do on the quiz, I'll show you This thing right here, which we might recognize, is the Big Dipper, Ursa Major. And this is the handle, and this is the spoon part, right? So if you follow the handle, you'll notice it has a curve. It is an arc. And if you follow the arc of the handle, it curves over, you find that this is the first bright star you can find. So astronomers say, arc to, and what is the name of this star? And you want to remember that you arc to Arkturus, Arkturus. And then you have to do sideways right now, but later in the year, in the summertime especially, it's going to be a vertical motion. But right now it's kind of a sideways motion. You spike to this star right here. What is the name of this star or object? And this is Spica, spike to Spica. Okay, so back to Arcturus. Arcturus is the bright star, but there is a shape right here. Looks like a kite maybe, but I asked you to learn another name for it as a nickname. So before I get to that, let's go ahead and talk about the constellation name, the proper name. So this star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? And the proper name is Boötes, Boötes, the herdsman. And what is the nickname for Boötes, the herdsman? It is the ice cream cone. Here's the cone, bottom part, and here's the big scoop of ice cream on the top. Okay, Boötes, the herdsman. So now when we spike to Spica, remember that's Spica, anything in the neighborhood right here, like this star, for example, this star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? And the answer is this is a very big constellation, actually, right? It's a very big constellation. It is called Virgo, and Virgo is the maiden. Okay, we're almost done. A couple more. So right here next to Spica, we find 1, 2, 3, 4 stars very close together, and they make a constellation, right? And the proper name, so we're going to get the proper name first. So this star, or this one, let's do this one. This star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? And you want to remember that the proper name is Corvus. Corvus is the proper name. The common name is the crow. Okay, now, not as bright, definitely not as bright. In fact, very dim. There's a semicircle of stars right here, and then a base right here. And so this is a very difficult to see constellation, but you know it's next to Corvus, right? So you have to keep your eyes peeled, right? If I find Corvus, and then I point to this star over here, you know I'm not talking about Corvus. I'm right next to it. But I'm not going to tell you, right? Hydra is kind of hard to find down here. I'm going to probably stick to Hydra being up here. So I point to this star, I say, this star is a member of a constellation. What is the proper name? And this time you want to say crater. Crater the cup. And you can see the cup now, right? And those are the springtime constellations, stars, and objects that you need to know. So hopefully you got them. If not, please review this video again until it becomes easy for you.